Vince Staples' new show on Netflix finally aired, I think on Valentine's Day. I had a chance to watch it last night, and I have some thoughts.
How was your day?
I bailed you out last week.
We ain't got no chicken for you.
But I'm Jew. Welcome to the channel. Please like and sub. Now, let's get into the Vince Staples show. I wasn't really sure what this show was going to be, whether it was going to be sitcomish like Martin or a slice of life like Atlanta and Insecure. Well, it turns out that Atlanta is the closest comparison to what the Vince Staples show actually is. But before we get into my thoughts on the show, who is Vince Staples? Which is a question that comes up a lot during the show. I first heard of Vince Staples back in like 2015-16 when he dropped the video for Lift Me Up, which is like one of the most amazing creative videos you will ever see. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And after that, I was just basically a fan of his music. To me, Vince Staples has always been one of those dope rappers that just doesn't get enough credit. Kind of like Lupe Fiasco back in the day. It seems like they just kind of shy away from the music industry because they don't want to play the politics and just go and do their own thing. And that's basically what Vince Staples has done throughout his career. You can see it in any interview. He just doesn't give a fuck about playing music politics.
And I feel like everybody's entitled to their opinion. You know, once you put something out in the universe, like you selling something, it's okay for people to say if they like it or they don't like it. Like, that's not really why I make music. Like, I don't care how nobody feel about nothing, to be 100% honest. I appreciate them listening. And that's as far as it goes.
But Vince has dropped some incredible music over the years. My favorite Vince Staples album is the one he dropped in 2021. I think it's just called Vince Staples. But that whole entire album is non-skippable. The Vince Staples album is still in heavy rotation for me, along with a bunch of other songs. And Ramona Park Broke My Heart, which is his latest album that dropped, I think, a couple years ago, is also dope. So I said all that to say that if you don't know Vince Staples music, just do yourself a favor and check it out. Now, as for the show, I wasn't quite sure what to expect with the show, but it turns out to be a limited series on Netflix that's 5 episodes. I think if this show was on networks with commercials and all that, it would basically be a 30-minute episode, but the episodes basically range between like 20 and 25 minutes, which is the perfect time for this type of show. The show basically follows Vince Staples throughout his everyday life and some of the crazy things that are happening around him, which I think is cool. I don't want to keep comparing this whole show to Atlanta, but the first episode reminds me of an Atlanta episode when Earn and Paperboy got locked up and Earn just had to spend the whole day in jail, which is actually one of the funniest interactions that ever happened in Atlanta.
Trying to talk to my girl, you acting all weird and shit.
Yo, girl.
Yeah, man, yo, this my ex Lisa, man.
My nigga, that's a man.
Nah, man, this my ex.
Your ex-girlfriend a man. Why you think she in jail with the men?
But there are definitely some funny moments sprinkled throughout the show. If you've ever watched Vince Staples talk or interact, he has a very dry wit and dry sense of humor, and that carries out throughout the show. So it's not just like outright jokes that are happening, but funny things are happening around the show, and I bust out laughing a few times. I do think one of the things that made Atlanta so fun to stand out is the cast. So you had Earn, you had Paperboy, you had Darius. They're all very different characters. Darius is very weird, Earn is very dry, and Paperboy is Paperboy. And because we had the chance to bounce around between all of those characters, I feel like Atlanta never got bogged down or too serious or too dry or too weird. And it was just kind of like the perfect balance between all of those things. Whereas Vince Staples basically follows Vince Staples around. There are people that interact or are in his circle, but it's just Vince Staples. And if you know Vince Staples, he has a very like low-key, dry personality. I do feel like at certain times I was waiting for some energy to pop up. That energy and character I was looking for actually happened in the bank robbery scene. I think the guy's name is Miles Bullock. He was in White Man Can't Jump, the remake that Vince Staples was also in. But by far, he stole the entire show for me. He was the funniest person. Vince interacted with him real well. They bounced off of each other real well. And I wish he was in the entire show just as like a sidekick or one of the main characters, because he was so fun and so cool, and he brought a different energy to the show that I think the show really could have used that type of energy lift or boost throughout. But again, the show was 5 episodes, first season. I think it's really cool. I think it touched on some interesting topics. There was a family reunion that felt like one of my family reunions. It was a running gag throughout the show, like, who is Vince Staples? Because again, some people know who Vince Staples is. Some people watching this video may have no clue. And I think the show is funny for addressing that, and it shows a lot of self-awareness from Vince himself to put it in the show. But again, I like the show. I actually could have went for a few more episodes. Like maybe if it was 8 episodes, I felt like I would have got a little more out of of it and a little more story to be told. But the Vince Staples show was pretty good. If I had to compare it to Atlanta, I like Atlanta a little bit better just for the energy and different characters. It's just as weird as Atlanta is in some episodes. But if you've seen the Vince Staples show, let me know in the comments what you think. What was your favorite episode? What thing made you bust out laughing? If you haven't seen it, make sure you check out the Vince Staples show. It's only 5 episodes, like 30 minutes, so it's not a big drain on your time. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the next video. Peace.